Welcome to the Development Book Club. Today we are finished with boundaries, and we're going to cover 3 things I liked and 3 things I didn't like. We'll hop right in. The takeaways, or things that I did like, was that the authors set up in the very beginning and continue throughout the book with a clear definition and model of boundaries. The definition they give the first time is that boundaries are a way of showing where I end and you begin. And this follows throughout the book. And there's a metaphor which is that of a fence. And that boundaries are like a property owner having a fence around their property, so they know where their property ends and another one begins. And there can be a lot of criticism of that model. However, a couple of the fine details they point out are that a fence is not a wall, first thing, and that fences have gates as well. So it's not something to keep people out, but it's a boundary line. And people can come in and out depending on who the people are, right? The good can come in, the bad can stay out. And that was an effective model to use throughout the book as a way to think of this as boundaries. Number 2, the account of childhood development that they give and the tie-in to boundaries in adults. They give this account of infancy that we've covered, being with the mother and then separating from the mother and then coming back to the mother, and how if our parents acted in a certain way at each point of those boundaries, if they wouldn't let us go or wouldn't take us back, how that can affect us later. There's some really deep insights there, which is really cool. Takeaway number 3 was that they did a good job on several points, having a step-by-step idea of the work of starting to enforce or form boundaries and to enforce consequences and setting limits. Really good for self-advocacy, for people, maybe someone reading this who has always had trouble saying no, or hearing no, or saying yes or hearing yes, which is another cool thing back to the first point, is that idea of different boundary problems. There's 4 different types. So there's a good way of sort of putting your toes in the water if you've never set boundaries before, where, work with somebody who's safe. It's something that doesn't matter, and try and say no to that. And then having a support group, and then finally telling somebody who's your biggest boundary buster or whatever. So I thought that they did a good social job of working somebody who's maybe never set boundaries through something like that. That was the good. Now, what did I not like about this book? Number 1 was right off the bat that there was no mention of the word God on the cover. And I didn't count the times throughout the book, but it's in the high hundreds to thousands, right? And I think that was a bit misleading. My bad for not reading the description in Amazon. But this book, according to page 28 right here at the very end of chapter 1, it says, this book presents a biblical view of boundaries, what they are, what they protect, how they're developed, how they are injured, how to repair them, and how to use them. And that was great to have in the first chapter. And also, I first noticed it on the inside of the front flap here, where it says, Christians often focus too much on being loving, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, I got a religious book. And they do a great job with the marketing and the presentation at the front. But it's not lost on me that it doesn't say the word God on the cover. And that's not an accident. And it seems a bit misleading. It is a bit misleading. Did not like that. However, there were still good things to be gained from the book. But point number 2 that I didn't like was that there were too many lists. Like there's a chapter called The 10 Laws of Boundaries that I didn't really think are necessary. And drawing on the biblical justification for boundaries. I'm not a biblical scholar. I suspect, though, that the authors, sometimes the passages they list clearly have to do with the boundary they're talking about, the issue. And a lot of times it's kind of like, are you just pulling this out because it sounds like it kind of matches? Again, not a biblical scholar, but it sounds like they're, to me, being selective about what they pick. And I wonder if there's counter quotes in the Bible for many of the points that they make, and I suspect that there are. Number 3, again, goes to these lists that are in the book. At one point, it becomes repetitive. They've said what they need to say, and they're repeating it again and again. So the book is 302 pages, and I suspect they could easily have cut out 40 of those pages. And I wonder about the biblical basis for boundaries, because in a good chunk of the book, when they talk about the development of an infant and childhood, it seems it is very secular. They're not really drawing from the Bible, and I'm okay with that. However, I think that they would like to set it up as God-based, but it's very secular and very world-based. And I'm not sure that God is necessary for healthy boundaries, even though that's their perspective and their point of view. So I would say the biggest one, yeah, like go ahead and put God on the cover if that's what the book's about. Why did they not do that? That's my biggest question. And they could have cut like 40 pages of fat out of here. That said, really good takeaways and really cool stuff, working with a clear definition and model of boundaries and tying in the child development and what to actually do about that. I think they could be more concise with it. And we'll see you next time with the next book. Thanks for watching.